So we've tried to figure out what the COVID death rate is, right? So, because Gallup revealed that the hospitalization rate, according to Gallup, they calculate that the hospitalization rate for the vaccinated population is 0.01%, or 1 in 10,914. And the rate for unvaccinated adults is 0.89%, or 1 case in 112 people. So the hospitalization rate for unvaccinated people is 0.89% according to Gallup. But what is this? So which seems unbelievably low. And then if you're vaccinated, it's even way lower. So I tried to find out what the death rate is. So that's the hospitalization rate, which should take away some of your anxiety about catching COVID, right? The hospitalization rate, even if you're unvaccinated, is 0.89%. The corona death rate is roughly 3.4%, but that doesn't tell the full story. Here's everything we know so far. So this is from last March. This is from March 12th, 2020. 2020, not 2021. 2020, they had come up with this 3.4% death rate. I can't find a newer one. Everybody still keeps saying 3.4%. So you see the problem with these numbers? If the hospitalization rate is 0.89%, how could the death rate be 3.4%? I need someone to explain that to me. Now, some people are saying the reason why the death rate is higher is because the way they're reporting the deaths from COVID. Watch this report from Australia.
Just now live, and Logan, this one takes a bit of explaining. What are the details?
Well, Simon, today the Ministry of Health added another death to its COVID-19 recording, but also said it was a case subject to a police investigation that's ongoing. Now, One News understands that this is in relation to Operation Metals, a homicide investigation launched after a man named Robert Hart sustained serious gunshot injuries outside a Newland motel last week, and he died despite first aid attempts. Now, since his death, health authorities say he tested positive for COVID-19, and One News understands that several people are also isolating. So then you have to ask how someone who sustained these types of injuries and then died ends up as part of our COVID-19 death tally. Now, the Ministry of Health says that's because under the World Health Organization guidelines, anyone who dies while also having an acute COVID-19 infection is recorded as part of a nation's death tally, whatever the cause of death might be. Now, exactly how this man died will be subject to an ongoing police investigation, as well as an investigation by the coroner. And meanwhile, 3 people have been charged in relation to the death, and police are still hunting for a 4th.
So according to that news report, the guy got shot, died, and they recorded his death as a COVID death. Is that why the death rate is so much higher than the hospitalization rate? I don't know. Again, I need someone to explain this to me. Here's another crazy article. This is crazy. So this is in The Guardian. It says a Victorian child, this is Victorian in Australia, Victorian child becomes youngest Australian to die with COVID as NT cases rise. Victorian's health department says child who died had other serious. So listen to this. This is the news story. So that's the headline. Victorian child becomes youngest Australian to die with COVID as cases rise. Sounds scary. It's exactly what the news media does. They try to scare the hell out of you. A Victorian child under 10 has become Australia's youngest person to die with COVID-19. Victoria's reported 1,166 new coronavirus infections on Saturday and 5 new deaths, including the child. Victoria's health department said the child had other serious comorbidities. Oh, really? Previously, 15-year-old Osama Suda from southwest Sydney was the youngest known person in Australia to die with the virus. When are they going to tell you what this kid died? But they keep pretending he died from COVID. The teenager from southwest Sydney died in August after contracting pneumococcal meningitis. And while he was also COVID positive, It was not the reason for his hospitalization or his death. Do you know how far that came down in the article? Wouldn't that be the sentence, the first sentence in the article? Don't you think that would be it? No, they buried this in like the fourth or fifth paragraph. And people say that you got to censor YouTube. These are, again, establishment news lying to you constantly, misinforming you, misleading you constantly, and stoking fear around COVID. So you stay afraid and you're pro-lockdown and pro every mandate. That's why they're doing this. Here's the Illinois Department of Health director. She's going to explain how they count their COVID deaths. Ready?
Just want to be clear in terms of the definition of people dying of COVID. So the case definition is very simplistic. It means at the time of death, it was a COVID positive diagnosis. So that means that if you were in hospice and had already been given, a few weeks to live, and then you also were found to have COVID, that would be counted as a COVID death. It means that even if you died of a clear alternate cause, but you had COVID at the same time, it's still listed as a COVID death. So everyone who's listed as a COVID death doesn't mean that was the cause of the death, but they had COVID at the time of death. I hope that's helpful.
And then you see how fast she got the hell out of there? You saw it, okay, and she just got the hell out of it. They should have put that sound effect in from cartoons. And she bolted. So do you see how they count COVID deaths? According to that, if you die and you have COVID in you, you're counted as a COVID death. According to that.
You get hit by a car.
And if you have COVID, according to that, you'll be counted as a COVID death. According to that. This is from Politico. More than a year and a half after the U.S. recorded its first COVID death in February 2020, there's still no consensus about the exact number of people who have been killed by the disease. They don't know. The official tally is more than 725,000, according to the CDC, a number the U.S. hit the same day that Colin Powell died from the COVID complications. But did Powell's passing count as a death from COVID? Surprisingly, there's no consensus on that question. There is no standardized national case definition that I'm aware of yet, said Michael Phillips, chief hospital epidemiologist at NYU Langhorne Health. He told Nightly News, there are a lot of opportunities for difference. Really? We can't get together on a definition of someone dies from COVID or not. No. I wonder why that is. I have an idea. They want to make the death rate higher to keep us scared to death so that they can do whatever they want. The phrase died of COVID complications means a variety of different things with no definition. States or even individual hospitals have their own criteria for how to count deaths from COVID. Death investigations in the U.S. are generally non-uniform, James Gill, the current president of the National Association of Medical Examiners, said. There are more than 2,000 jurisdictions that report deaths in the U.S. Coroners, physicians, sheriffs, justices of the peace, and others can all fill out death certificates. Those death certificates are what the CDC examines for its official tally. States' official tallies are climbing as jurisdictions revise their death tolls based on a closer look at death certificates. Oklahoma added more than 1,000 deaths to its count this week after the state health department investigated COVID deaths. You really think that they were undercounting them? You really think? You believe that? Oh, we had to add another 1,000 deaths because we've been undercounting them. Do you believe that? New York added nearly 12,000 COVID deaths to its official tally in August after accounting for all death certificates data and not just those from hospitals, adult care facilities, and nursing homes. Both states' data now more closely match the CDC numbers. Isn't that amazing? So they had their own numbers. They were much lower than the CDC numbers. Now they've added all these extra deaths because of a new accounting system, and now they're closer to the CDC's numbers. That is really convenient. Age-specific IFRs, so now here's the problem. So when you try to find out what the actual death rate is, there are two things. They are called IFRs, which is the infection fatality rates, and then CFRs, which are case fatality rates. What's the difference? Hard to figure out. So an infection fatality rate means that if you're infected, but you don't show symptoms, or you may show symptoms, that's the infection fatality. So you are infected with it. But now the case fatality rate, which is much higher than the infection fatality rate, the case fatality rate is if you are diagnosed and you have symptoms of the disease, then you're considered a case. That's as best I could figure out. It's very confusing. So believe me, whichever way they're using it, it's used for the establishment and against you. Okay? So get this. So the infection fatality rate ranged from 0.001% in those aged 5 to 9. So what they're saying is that the fatality rate for people who are infected with COVID in between ages of 5 to 9 are 0.001%. Holy cow. Now go get your kid vaccinated so you can protect them from a 0.0001%. I think I added a zero just now. 0.001%. And for those aged greater than 80 years old, it was 8%. So risk of death for men was significantly higher than that for women. And infection fatality rates showed substantial heterogeneity across countries. Hey Siri, what's the definition of heterogeneity?
The quality or state of being diverse in character or content.
So it showed substantial quality or state of being diverse in character and content across countries. I don't know what that means. If you do, write me an email. The CDC counts only deaths where COVID is listed on a death certificate as a cause or contribution to the patient's passing. It acknowledges that about 20 to 30% of death certificates have issues with completeness. I don't know what that means. Saying cause of death information is not perfect, but it is very useful. Again, if you could tell me what there's death certificates have issues with completeness. Completeness? Completeness. That's that word? Okay.
Yes,
God,
said it right the first time.
I am dumb. Okay. But I don't know what that means. Do you know what that means? No, right? Okay. Hang on, I'm getting a text. Maybe somebody knows what it means. Okay, so what this meant, the heterogeneity, according to this means a wide range across different countries, high in some, low in others. Okay. However, even mortality is not a clear figure since it is reported differently in different countries. While death is a clear diagnosis, the cause of death is not. Some countries attribute death to COVID-19 if the virus was present at death. However, many deaths occurred in people who had underlying health problems, comorbidities. They were thus already at an increased risk of death, raising the dilemma of differentiating death from COVID-19 and death with COVID-19. So I still don't know what the death rate is. After all my look, I mean, I know what they say. They say 3.4%. So that's, I guess, the official number. As far as I can tell, I'm not sure if that's right even. So I'm not saying anything. I'm saying I'm confused. And that's the point of this whole segment. I don't know what the real facts are. I know this I know that the hospitalization rate is 0.89%, according to the Gallup poll. They did the research on this. So I know that. And I know they say it's 3.4%, but you see how those two numbers don't correlate. They seem to contradict each other. So if anybody knows how to do that, I mean, it is amazing that someone can get shot and they count them as a COVID death. That is amazing. And it's also amazing how they try to scare the hell out of everybody by saying a young kid just died with it when he died with it, but not from it. So again, I would not trust anything I read in the establishment news media about any of this. If you're getting your COVID information from the establishment media, you're being fear-mongered too and lied to, by the way. We caught them lying, and YouTube doesn't make NBC News take down their lies about COVID. They can keep them up. So if you're getting your news information from establishment news about COVID, you're getting propaganda from Big Pharma. And they make it as hard as possible to find out the real numbers. Hey, come see one of our live stand-up shows December 10th or 17th or New Year's Eve at the Two Roads Theater in Studio City, California. See you there. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all tickets.